President Buhari says he is humbled by the millions who ignore the revolution now protest, where police disperse protesters in Lagos, low turnout in other parts of the country. And the Middle Belt Forum is calling for the proscription of killer headsmen who they are accusing of committing genocide against their people. Hello everyone and welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbale at Channels Television's global headquarters in Lagos. What a day it has been, everyone. Stories of protest, arrest, sounds of revolution has enveloped the polity. We will come to that in a bit. Well, some eminent Nigerians are not happy and they believe they are not fairly treated. They are the Middle Belt Forum and they are calling for the proscription of killer headsmen who they are accusing of committing genocide against their people. At a one-day conference of ethnic nationalities from the Middle Belt Forum, themed Awakening, the president of the forum, Dr. Beatrice Pogu, called on all people of the Middle Belt to resist what he described as a plan to take over the ancestral land, while calling for peace between the Tiv and Jukuns, calling both sides of the conflict to embrace peace.
Been proscribed as a trade union and declared terrorists in line with the international assessment and categorization. Good governance does not exist without the rule of law. If you remember, international organs, I think, categorized the Fulani as the fourth most deadly terrorist group in the world. Yet, our country see them as friends, enemies of state.
We need a new approach of mutual tolerance and mutual respect because we in the Middle Belt are very embarrassed. We have a common enemy. These are the headsmen militias killing our people. We don't need another secondary contradiction such as the Jukun thief crisis.
Well, our major conversation tonight is some of the incidents or events that you've seen across some of your cities, whether it held or it did not. The president has reacted to how Nigerians participated or how did they ignored that protest. We'll get the conversation started when we check out some of the other political stories we have for you.
Respite seems to have come the way of members of the Islamic movement in Nigeria as their leader Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaki and his wife Zinat have been granted leave by the Kaduna State High Court to seek medical attention abroad. The court held that the Ayman leader and his wife would be accompanied to India by officials of the Kaduna State government, but did not give any time frame regarding their stay there, and no date has been fixed for the trip. The Presidential Election Tribunal has reserved judgment in the petition of the Hope Democratic Party challenging the conduct of the February 23rd presidential election and the return of President Muhammadu Buhari as winner of the poll. The tribunal reserved judgment in the petition on Monday after parties in the petition had adopted their final written addresses. Adopting the HDP's final address in its lead counsel, Mr. Chukwunonyere Njoku, urges the tribunal to set aside the election of the February the 23rd poll on the ground that the electoral body didn't follow the Electoral Act before postponing the election.
We are not here arguing about the election that returned President Muhammadu Buhari. Rather, we are saying that having not had the power to postpone the election of the 16th, therefore a referendum was conducted.
The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Movement, Mr. Minchi Habu, says the withdrawal of the petition of the PDM and himself was to give way for good governance as promised by President Muhammadu Buhari. Speaking with journalists in Abuja, Mr. Habu said that contrary to claims that the party and himself was paid by the ruling All Progressives Congress to withdraw the petition, the withdrawal was after the realization by the party and himself that the APC-led government shared his vision and that of his supporters.
The reason for which I decide to contest the February 23rd general election of this country is the same vision and zeal which the government of the President Muhammadu Buhari operate.
One of the tasks that the 9th Assembly must take up urgently is the passage of the Federal Audit Commission bill. Going by the report of the Center for Social Justice, the nation is losing about 1 to 200 billion naira annually owing to the non-passage of the bill. Rising from a meeting in Abuja today, the group expressed concern over the situation, urging the presidency to make pronouncement on the status of the bill, which is currently with the executive.
All right, then, everyone, our proceeding here begins this evening on perhaps some of the stories you are talking about today, everyone. A lot of people thought with the arrest of Omoyele Sowore, the Revolution Now protest may not hold. But some of the organizers came through with their plans to stage the protest despite the warning of the police for them to desist. It's a day one of the Revolution Now protest put together by a coalition of civil rights movement coordinated by the publisher of online news mediums, Sahara Reporters, and presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, AAC, in the 2019 presidential election, Mr. Omoyele Sowore. Protesters gathered today in different parts of the country. Some define the heavy presence of security agents to get their message across on their displeasure with the security situation in Nigeria and other governance issues. Well, let's begin in Lagos. There was a drama in Lagos where with some protesters arrested by the police, including a man who claimed to be a journalist but could not show any form of identification. And in Abuja, the nation's capital, the planned protest did not hold at the Unity Fountain as scheduled. Rather, a handful of protesters converged on the National Human Rights Commission headquarters in Abuja to submit what they termed a petition. The protesters defied the going to register their complaint. And to Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, security agents surrounded the Kwara State Stadium complex, Ilorin, in anticipation of the Revolution Now protest march. With this development, with sporting activities halted this morning with the presence of heavily armed men of the Nigerian police force. In Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, a combined team of security operatives have staged a show of force around major streets of the state capital to warn would-be protesters. Similar scenario played out in Benin City, the capital of Edo State. Heavy presence of security operatives there. The president has been speaking about this situation, and the president said today that he's humbled by the turnout to the venues and convergence points of the protest. In a statement today, the president's media aide writes, and I quote, "Today, millions of Nigerians went about their businesses, work, seeking employment, attending school, college, and caring for their families. By doing so, the millions defended our country's hard-won democratic rights by ignoring calls on social media to join a phantom revolution. There were a few hundred persons today who, for their own reasons, decided to act upon the demands of a group calling itself Global Coalition for Security and Democracy in Nigeria, which went on social media to ask everyday Nigerians to overthrow the government they only elected some 6 months ago. The presidency went further to say the president is humbled by the support not for himself or the governing party, but for the democratic values of modern-day Nigeria through the wisdom of those millions of citizens who prefer democracy and decided not to undermine an elected government. Tonight on the program, we attempt to look at the incident which happened today, the actions of government against those protesters, and the implications on our democracy. We'll get to some of the reactions of some of the protesters and the organizers later on the program. Let's get talking, everyone, and dissect these issues for you, looking at it from basically two major angles, especially from the political prism. I have joining me from our Abuja studio, my panel, Mr. Kasim Afegbo, a spokesperson to the PDP Presidential Campaign Organization, and Honorable Cletus Obun, a former lawmaker and chieftain of the APC. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on tonight. Let me begin with you, Mr. Afegbo. How does this come to you today? Perhaps I thought a lot of Nigerians thought that this meant the protest will not hold, but it held. But in the manner in which it held, the reaction of security operatives and some of the scenarios which played out, how would you react to that?
Well, thank you very much. I think what people don't understand is the fact that revolution is in the minds of the people, and it is not the number of persons you see on the street that will talk about the success or failure of a revolution. Before now, the word revolution was not a popular one in the minds and in the mouth of people. But today, when you go around, you hear people talking about revolution now. That means it's a lexicon that is gradually gaining traction. And gradually, in the minds of the people, they will begin to realize that it's important for them to protest, certain issues, certain things that the present government is not doing right, and to also press for their demands. Because if you look at the blueprint of revolution now, they are asking for quite a number of very salient issues. But for the failure of governance, for the failure of the APC-led government in certain critical sectors of the nation's economy, both politics and in terms of welfare of the people, this revolution now is beginning to, gain traction in the minds of the people. And so now, revolution now has become a word that is common in the mouths and in the hearts of the people. So, for me, I think it's the failure of governance that is leading to this. And failure of governance which has led to insecurity, which has led to job losses, hunger, poverty, deprivations, name them. If things were right, if the APC could sit down and provide governance, if they can govern the country very well, people will not be agitating for things like revolution now.
Let me ask Honorable Cletus Obun, in the manner in which the government reacted to these, especially the security operatives, and also look at what the president said. The president seems to be happy that people did not turn up. How do you think the APC government led by President Buhari looks in the eye of an average Nigerian in the light of what happened today?
I think we are having what we might call a storm in a teacup. What we are calling a revolution here, I am very sure my very good friend Afuba will remember that in our school days, when we talk about protests, in the tradition of school protests, it would have been far better than this. It's laughable that people are coming out this time to tell us that the government is reacting. I think it was the most civil thing, the most civilized thing to do was what the security operative did. Of course, the DSS was challenged by Shore to the effect that it will no longer exist. He specifically mentioned the DSS. And I don't think that a predicted war can kill a cripple because he will definitely defend himself. So the DSS preemptively did not act in a primitive manner. They only called him and arrested him for questioning. I do not know any country on earth that stomachs and accepts threats to its sovereignty. even from another nation or from its own citizens. We are just experiencing the shootings in the United States. We are experiencing of protests in all kinds of countries across the world. So if you compare that with what is happening here, is it Somalia, is it Sudan, you will just know that what we are having in Nigeria here is sponsored melodrama. Sponsored melodrama of a farcical tradition.
Okay, so
that we are just having nothing but a gang of young people.
Okay, let me pause you for a moment. There are deeper issues and deeper perspectives to some of these issues, but let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk more on these issues of the protest, the reaction of government, our democracy, and its development. That's going to be in a moment, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. So we're looking at the reactions, the immediate ones, on what we saw today across the country, in some parts of the country. Low turnout, the president came out to say he's humbled by the reactions of those Nigerians who did not show up for that rally. He did say that that is an embrace of the democratic values of the nation. So let's get back to the conversation. I have tonight my panel, Mr. Kasim Afegbua, a spokesperson of the Presidential Campaign Organization, and Honorable Cletus Obun. He's a former lawmaker and the chieftain of the APC. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let me allow you to land on that thought, Mr. Obun. The big question on the minds of Nigerians is that, and the criticism against the APC government is that they are intolerant to dissenting views, and the fact that the manner in which they reacted, some would say the followers of Omoyele Sowore, the gestable manner, that was how they describe it, and how he was arrested on a matter of a protest that they planned. These are some of the reactions that are coming up, Mr. Obun.
Well, let me say this. I do not know what country, even a banana republic, will not subject itself to the vagaries and the caprice of a few individuals, no matter how highly placed and strong they are. In any case, once I heard Sowore mounting revolution, I just knew that he was calling attention to himself. And he should know that a revolution is not a tea party for anybody or a walk in the park. So clearly, when he was threatening institutions of government and establishment, the whole purpose of government, security is paramount to the protection of people. And when people do not want to join you in your so-called protest and revolution, they have a right not to join you, just like you have a right to protest. But to say you are engaged in a revolution, revolutions are never in any way peaceful. They are distinct from protest. Terminologies, the pragmatics of linguistic dislocation must be taken into consideration in the
sorry,
language.
Let me butt in. Apologies, Honorable Obun. Apologies. Let me quickly put this question in. The question that some people will ask, some of you who hold this perspective, is that are you happy with the status quo? Security situation, the economic situation of the country, and the dynamics of our lives and livelihood as a people. Are you happy with it? A lot of people have called for a restructuring of the nation. So if you don't want revolution, according to them, what else do you want? Do you want the status quo? That's the question they're asking.
Now, let me say this. Let me respond to this quickly. We are going through the throes and pangs of nationhood as a people. And I do agree, and if you remember, a few days ago, General Obasanjo, the former president of this country, recanted himself over his letter when he said, we have a national crisis in our hands, and we must look for a solution as a people rather than blame shifting. What we have here is not about APC. I insist, it is about Nigerian situation having been degenerated over time. Countries do not rise or fall overnight. It's not turnkey technology that you turn the key and Nigeria is bright, or light, let there be light. What Nigerians are going through is a accumulation of effect, cause and effect over the years. And over 50 years of our existence, we've run into this. So I expect that anybody wants to change. Buhari wanted to change this place. He contested election 4 times. And in the process, he won. He's now attempting to do what he imagines can change the fortunes of this country. If that is not succeeding, wait and then contest and reduce the risk through a democratic process. But if you now want a revolution, you have the Jukuns and the thieves today. Is that a revolution they are looking for? The thieves, the Izars of Abakaliki and the Ukeles of Cross River State. Is it a revolution they are looking for?
Let me allow Honorable Obun. It's a good time to allow your friend Kasim Afegbua to weigh in on this one. Mr. Afegbua, the turnout that you saw today, isn't it a vote of confidence on President Buhari and the APC? Because if people were really ready for a revolution, wouldn't they have turned up for these rallies today?
Well, thank you, Cheung. Well, I do sympathize with my friend Cletus Obum. You know, for those APC chieftains who are overfed with the menu of some ideological precepts, they may see this as not succeeding. But in the minds and in the hearts of, in the heart of hearts of Nigerians, they are making a very strong statement about their displeasure over the misgovernance in the last 4 years, and we have started another tenure, that is neither here nor there so far, because we are still rotating on the same axis. People, the APC government appears so confused, so rudderless, so clueless, to the extent that there are no critical interaction, no conversation across board, no dialogue on sensitive national issues. Sometimes ago, they will criticize Obasanjo for issuing a letter. Now they
Let me quickly button and put this question. Sorry, Mr. Afegbua. The question the APC folks will ask you is that if you think they are rudderless and thoughtless and they don't have an idea of how to govern this country according to the way you are describing it, how then were they voted into office in 2019? That's a question they will be asking you.
Well, at the risk of not making statements that will be considered prejudicial, I would allow the tribunal to finish, its sittings and give its own verdict based on evidences that have been put before it with respect to the 2019 elections. But in my own personal view, and the views of quite millions of Nigerians, we know that the 2019 elections was anything but fair. But having said that, you see, Cletus Obum will not deny the fact that there are crises in the country. He won't deny that there is poverty everywhere. He won't deny that there is hunger, there is deprivations, internally displaced persons, insecurity everywhere, kidnappings, and all of this. What is government doing, the APC-led federal government, what are they doing in terms of concrete terms to put these issues on the front burner and articulate a roadmap that will take us out from this sham? We are saying that for a country as multi-religious and multidimensional like Nigeria, sitting on a delicate balance, you need to begin to encourage conversations. We don't want monologue. The other day, they told us that Atiku Abubakar was issuing statements of congratulations to Boris Johnson because of that. It's treasonable felony. So whether he's talking about revolution now, you are talking about treasonable felony. It is because there are failures, and these failures are so visible that you can see without any prompting. So for me, APC needs to sit down, get its act right, and govern. Provide leadership. If you don't provide leadership, those gaps will be taken up by people who are agitating for better lives.
We need to leave it at that because we're out of time. Honorable Obun, 20 seconds, and you heard the advice from Mr. Afegbua. Is your party going to yield to that advice? 20 seconds, your final word.
Well, my final word on this is that the Buhari presidency in the APC-led government in this regime has a duty to Nigerians. And nobody had promised a paradise on earth. What we are doing in Nigeria as elsewhere is constant improvement and search for development and search for improvement in the human condition. Therefore, once you inherit problems, you are going to be solving them on a daily basis. Nigeria is on the path to recovery, and this president and this government, led by Buhari, has done and is doing so much to engage the people in a manner that has never been done
I'm very sure Mr. Afegbua is nodding his head in the negative.
I don't think this is where we are.
That's how far we can go. Many thanks for coming, Mr. Kasim Afegbua. Having a nice time this evening. Mr. Honorable Cletus Obun, thank you so much for coming, both of you, tonight on the program. Well, that's our show, and I say that the eyes have it. My advice to wherever you may be, if you're governing, you're in leadership position, be on the popular side, the side of the people. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'm Shoakim Ali. Bye-bye.